All right, it is hour number 2 here, and I was just talking with Rohit Ponniaya here, and we were talking a little bit about, the college football bowl system, and I don't really care about the Liberty Bowl, and you get the NCAA tournament. I mean, Rohit, is there any better event outside of the Super Bowl than this? What we're watching with March Madness.
No, and I don't even think the Super Bowl is really comparable. I guess maybe if you're not North American, the World Cup is kind of on par with this. But we're talking about so many games in a few days, crazy upsets every year. There's nothing really that compares. I love the season.
So now, do you get the best team to win the national title, or do you get the hottest team? You win 6 in a row, all depending on where you're placed and what region you're placed, probably determines a little bit of that as well. So do you get the best team in the country to win this event or the hottest team?
I think you kind of need to look for a little bit of both. You need to look for a team that is catching up fire, has a lot of momentum, but is already kind of one of those top tier teams entering the tournament. So I think it's kind of about trying to manage your expectations of those teams. And it does kind of suck because two of the top teams entering this tournament, of course, Michigan and Duke, suffered some pretty big injuries before the coming in. So I think Arizona is the team that kind of has the most momentum right now, to be honest.
Anything surprise you so far in the opening 2 rounds of the tournament?
The big things, of course, are some of those number one seeds maybe underperforming a little bit. What doesn't really surprise me is, though, is some of the upsets that came through with those 11 seeds. I thought Texas was going to beat BYU. I thought VCU was going to beat North Carolina. I thought Louisville was going to lose as well. They didn't end up losing, but UCF certainly gave them a run for their money. I would say, looking at everything, I would say this tournament has actually been, not necessarily super predictable, but I would say that most of the underdogs that pulled off big wins and have shown up have been the kind of smaller mid-major teams that people thought would do well, So people were talking about St. Louis all season. People weren't surprised that Miami, Ohio beat SMU in the first 4. So, I mean, a lot of these smaller schools, I think people kind of see them coming this time.
Do you agree then that the committee did a nice job at putting these teams in the right regions? Do you think the committee did a good job at really placing these teams?
For the most part, I think I have some issues with some of the seeding. I think St. John's was definitely underseeded. I think there's a little bit of inconsistency, and you can see that they have some bias towards certain conferences on the whole. But all in all, for the most part, I do like what they've done here. And I think they did kind of the best with what they have, because a lot of these teams didn't make it easy for them. A lot of those bubble teams lost, bad games down the stretch. A lot of the contenders lost some bad games down the stretch as well. So they certainly didn't make it easy on the committee there.
All right, so there's got to be a lot of talk going on right now in Chapel Hill with Hubert Davis. I mean, they get upset by VCU. In the last hour, I made a suggestion to Coach James Young, and I'll ask you the same thing. Don't you push your chips in and go get Jay Wright and bring Jay Wright's rear end down to North Carolina, because you can't lose in the opening round like that. And that last couple minutes of that game did not look good for the Tar Heels.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think Hubert Brown's kind of worn out his welcome there. I think they need something big, and it's UNC. So you can't just grab anybody. I think you need somebody like Jay Wright, who has that championship pedigree coming in, would really kind of bring them back to where they were. And I mean, it's tough to say because we do know that North Carolina had some tough injury luck, losing Caleb Wilson towards the end of the season. But yeah, just squandering that massive lead they had, not a good look. And they still are a talented enough team. They shouldn't be doing that in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Okay, I have to ask you. And by the way, I looked it up because I never heard of High Point. Sorry, no disrespect. I'm glad to hear that they're from North Carolina, so that makes me feel a little bit better that they're there on Tobacco Road and the home of college basketball. But High Point in Arkansas, I mean, I don't know. I mean, after what I saw High Point do to Wisconsin, I mean, do they got a shot here in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I do think they have a shot. I'm not betting it. I think it's worth mentioning that that comeback was kind of crazy down the stretch. I mean, 21 points in the final 5 minutes. They got a pair of threes from two guys that are 30% 3-point shooters. They got 3 triples and a layup from a guy who came in averaging 6 points per game. A guy who didn't have a single 2-point field goal all season. So I mean, they had these crazy outlier performances, and they managed to squeak out a win. but you can't pull off a miracle multiple times in a row. It's not something like St. Louis, who went into played Georgia, just destroyed them. It was kind of a weird performance. So I think Arkansas's athleticism and size is going to be a little bit too much for them here.
All right, what about the Gators? They're down there in Tampa right now. They destroyed Perryview. I don't think anybody thought that was going to be any kind of game. Probably what everyone thought, they were going to kill that team first of four. They beat Lehigh, I believe. You tell me about the Gators. They didn't have a very good Southeastern Conference tournament. Do you believe that this could be a Final Four team?
I've been kind of skeptical about Florida all season. I mean, we know how important guard play is in the NCAA tournament, and that whole new backcourt has been very up and down. Three-point shooting hasn't been great. They did clean up their turnovers a little bit. They were near the bottom of the country in turnover rate for the first couple of months. That has gotten better. And it really comes down to, how far can their bigs take them? Obviously, a huge mismatch in the first round against, an incredibly small team. And they just absolutely destroyed them there. But once you start playing those bigger teams later on, it's not going to be as easy for them. So I'm not completely sold on Florida. And, I think if they face another similarly sized team up front, like a Michigan or an Arizona, I think they lose.
Are you surprised that St. Louis is kind of hanging around right now with Michigan?
No, not at all, to be honest. I mean, Michigan didn't look great against Howard. They didn't look great really the last month of the season. Came into the tournament, after that loss to Purdue. LJ Cason really kind of hurt their second unit there. And, they aren't playing their best ball of the season right now. And I think St. Louis is the sort of team that they can just score. I mean, they have so much depth. And I think it's really important to note their depth, right? They've got 9 guys averaging more than 15 minutes per game. When you're playing 2 games in 3 days, depth really matters because you don't want those tired legs, right? So even though they destroyed Georgia a couple days ago, it's not like they were giving everyone 35, 38 minutes. So I think these guys can definitely run and keep up with Michigan here. They definitely have the firepower to do that.
Do you think that game is close with VCU? VCU, obviously, the team that beat North Carolina. Illinois, everyone really likes this basketball team. You talk about one of the best scoring teams in the country this year. This game close?
I don't think so. I think Illinois ends up winning by double digits here. I think they cover. I know everyone's on VCU right now, and I think that says a lot because this line is really held out despite a lot of the public really liking VCU in this spot. Like you said, big comeback win against the Tar Heels, but the Tar Heels were extremely vulnerable coming into the tournament. I don't think the Rams have the offensive firepower to keep up with the Illinois offense, and the size and rebounding advantage are going to be huge here. I know people are a little bit skeptical about Illinois because of how they look down the back half of the regular season, but 4 of their losses came in overtime. And I also don't think their defense is as bad as a lot of people think. The stretch where they really struggled on defense, they didn't have their best defender in Kylan Boswell. They also had Stojakovic, another good defender who was banged up for a few games as well. So, I mean, this is a defense that doesn't force turnovers. They do defend well in the paint. They hold opponents to about 31% shooting from deep. So I do think they can get the job done here. And I think it's going to be a little bit of an emotional letdown spot for the Rams.
Longhorns again. Do you think their job today that, against Gonzaga, Mark Few's guys, obviously, again, in the tournament here, expecting to go far. What are you looking at there?
I love Texas in this spot. There's a few ways to handle this. Plus 6.5 on the spread is one. Over team total 70.5 is another. Looking at the over points for Matas Vakaitis is another way to look at it. They just match up extremely well against the Zags. I mean, you look at the Longhorns' biggest weaknesses. It's their 3-point defense and their tendency to foul. The Zags do not get to the line. They do not shoot well from the arc. And on the other side of the floor, Gonzaga has like these impressive defensive stats, but those are really puffed up by weak competition in the West Coast Conference. We see them struggle earlier in the year against more athletic teams, and I don't think they have anybody that's capable of locking up Swain or Vakaitis. So I think Texas can definitely cover and can maybe even win outright here.
Absolutely. Our great friends at Morgan & Morgan, the #1 injury law firm in all of America for a reason. Don't forget our great friends at Morgan & Morgan. Like I told you about the family in Florida, $350K, they ended up getting $12 million in settlement. The one family in Pennsylvania, $650 they were initially offered. They ended up getting nearly $30 million in settlement. Go to forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. More with Rohit Ponniaya here next, right here on Sports Grid.
I wait until I get the tournament bracket. Then you'll see me start to talk about who makes a run, who's right to get picked off. You go back to last year, look at St. John's, right? They were on a roll. They got Arkansas, who was a better version of St. John's.
College basketball today, only on Sports Grid.
You know, you don't usually get Alabama basketball booked at less than 160. You're getting that now here. The real question is Aiden Holloway done for the tournament for an Alabama team who, you know, we've seen under Nate Oates, they're more than capable of getting themselves to a Sweet 16 and Elite 8 and maybe even beyond that.
Newswire, only on Sports Grid.
9+ sounds pretty good here, Donnie, at around even money, right?
Ooh.
I got no problem there, trading at 54 cents. And again, all the pressure is on the higher seeds and the favorites, right? Start getting into that 4 or 5 minute mark in the second half, and you're down double digits. Some teams, it does not get better, Donnie. They don't pull themselves up off the court.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on Sports Grid.
NBA Central sent out a tweet yesterday. Hornets announcer Eric Collins says Jalen Duren is one of his favorite players to watch. Quote, I like talking about that body of his cut up like coleslaw, end quote. Interesting.
Yeah. Not quite sure what the reference to coleslaw is. No idea, Donnie. I have no idea.
The Early Line, only on Sports Grid.
It is truly one of the greatest times of the year, and I say it all the time, the NCAA March Madness. I mean, you can't get any better than this. Rohit Ponniaya is here with us here and then. You know, again, Louisville, as you said, I mean, I thought USF was going to beat them as well. USF, you know, I thought, again, they had an opportunity of winning that game. They ended up rallying back, and Louisville was able to make their three-point shots. They take on Michigan State. In your opinion, Michigan State, Sparty still wins this game here?
I think so. I've been trying to figure out the best way to fade Louisville kind of all day. I think I'm probably going to do Michigan State first half and second half money lines parlayed together. So you're getting that at close to even money. And yeah, I mean, I just don't think Louisville is that good without Brown. It's kind of annoying that for some of these teams, they were very kind of tight-lipped about key players and whether or not they'd be playing. Silas DeMaria and UConn's another one. But now that we know that, he's not going to be playing in this, this game, I think Louisville is very susceptible here. I don't think they're going to be able to get anything going against a Michigan State team that's extremely fundamentally sound, plays really good defense, rebounds extremely well. Tom Izzo knows how to get the job done, especially in, games where he is favored. So I like Michigan State here. But, if the Cardinals manage to eke this out and do manage to get Brown back, and he is healthy, all big ifs, I do think they could make some noise, but I'm not sold on them without Brown.
What do you think is the best region right now?
I think it's still the East. I think, I know Duke didn't look good that first day, but I just think there's so many quality teams there that, if they come out of things, they can start looking really good down the stretch. I did really love the South region for a hot minute, but now I'm worried about Iowa State with the Joshua Jefferson injury. So I think right now it's the East. I think you can go down to the 4 or 5 seeds. Like a team like St. John's is still very dangerous as a number 5 seed. Teams like Kansas as a 4 seed is also dangerous as well. So lots of teams there that could really pull things off and build some momentum going into the Final Four.
You mentioned Duke. They looked a little wobbly, and they got TCU. I mean, are you concerned about Duke and getting some consistency going? Is this the right team to do it against?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the one that's going to really test your ball handling ability, see if Caden Boozer is capable of being that lead guard. And it looks like they're probably not going to have Patrick Njongba for this game as well. So they are going to need to, figure things out. And I think Jamie Dixon's squad is a team that's going to test them, but not necessarily beat them. So I think this is a good little step on their way to kind of getting their feet under them as they head into the tougher opponents they're going to be facing if they want to win this tournament.
South Region has this Houston Cougars team, and I've said this before. I think Calvin Sampson may have his best backcourt. And as you said before on the program, the teams with the best backcourts usually have great success in a tournament like this, especially when you have to win 6 of these puppies. But they got A&M, who's kind of a tough team. So, again, how do you see Houston today?
I think Houston plays extremely well in this spot. I think this is one of those situations where you can almost always trust them. They come out fired up in these games. Their ball pressure can create a lot of issues for other teams. And then all of a sudden they're getting quick points in transition. I also think they're going to have a really good time getting offensive rebounds here. So that kind of helps them recycle the ball, get more shots in. And I think this is the type of situation where Kingston Fleming tends to play extremely well in as well. He can be a little bit passive at times, especially in games where they're not necessarily coming down to the wire. But in those tough games and those games where he, feels the pressure, he tends to really step up. So I like Houston in this spot. I don't know if I'm going to lay the points with them, but I think they win fairly convincingly here.
Do you agree this is probably the game of the day? It's in the South region, and I believe it's in Oklahoma City. Vanderbilt's favored, I believe, or maybe a dog in this one here by 1.5 in this game here against Nebraska. I've asked you numerous times, Rohit, about this Nebraska team because I can't get a handle on who they are. But is this going to be last possession type of ball game we're looking at with Vanderbilt and the Cornhuskers?
Yeah, I think it is. I think this is going to be a close one. All the spreads and the analytics seem to suggest it is. I'm with you. I have a hard time pegging this Nebraska team. I did not really think they were going to be good coming into the year. Then all of a sudden they started off unbeaten. Then they kind of stumbled down the stretch. They take a lot of threes, but if they're not hitting those shots, they don't really play that well. So it's it's a tough one for me, but I think Vanderbilt is just a little bit more consistent. I like what they've done throughout the entire season. I know they had a little bit of a letdown in the SEC final, but getting up to that point was pretty impressive, and beating Florida, I think, was extremely impressive. So I think Vanderbilt is the more balanced team here, and I like them in what's pretty much a pick 'em at this point.
It's a couple of these Sunday games. You're going to have to explain this to me, Rohit, so let me get this right. St. John's wins the Big East, and they have to fly to Valspar Arena in San Diego to play Kansas. I mean, I'm really not getting that one there, but okay, here, I guess they got to throw them somewhere. But the Big East champion has to go out west, and they go to the furthest point, and that's Valspar Arena in San Diego, and they take on Kansas. They take care of business.
Yeah, I mean, this is a weird one. I did not expect them to be 3.5-point favorites. Taking on a Kansas team that at times this season has looked like a title contender. Obviously, that offense has kind of gone flat at times, which is weird. This Kansas offense, all of a sudden, it has a healthy Darren Peterson, and it plays probably the worst it's played all season. It's kind of strange, but I'd say personnel-wise, you look player for player, and I think Kansas has an answer for them. Zuby's great, of course, but Floyd Badunga is a great center as well. And then you look at guys like Peterson, Trey White, their point guard. They have all these players that I think match up extremely well with St. John's. And I don't think it's going to be easy for St. John's at all. I think this is a spot where you either take the points with Kansas or you take them outright on the money line. I think I saw that at plus 140 earlier today. Like I said, at full strength, Kansas is still talented enough to win the title. I haven't seen great execution from them. I'm not asking anyone to bet a futures ticket on them now, but I do think they have value as an underdog in the spot.
You mentioned it at the top here about this tournament. You never know what you're going to get with some of these teams. Utah State and Arizona. Utah State, watching in the first game, they could shoot the basketball. Not saying that Arizona's going to be in any kind of trouble here, but in 30 seconds, Rohit, what do you think of this game?
This is a terrible matchup for Utah State. Yeah, they can shoot the ball. They can score inside. They also won the rebounding battle against Villanova. But those are areas where Arizona is at their best, right? They are massive. They dominate the boards. They have arguably the best interior defense in the country. And look at what Utah State does poorly in terms of fouling a lot, sending opponents to the line, that sort of thing. That feeds right into Arizona's strengths as well. So I think Arizona is going to have a pretty successful game and beat them pretty handily here, which they've kind of done all season. We've seen them win with margin against quality teams throughout the year.
Boy, I'll tell you, I learned something about the NCAA every year with the tournament. I now find out who High Point is. Roy, thank you so much, man. We'll talk NBA divorce next here on Sports Grid.
I wait until I get the tournament bracket. Then you'll see me start to talk about who makes a run, who's right to get picked off. You go back to last year, look at St. John's, right? They were on a roll. They got Arkansas, who was a better version of St. John's.
College basketball today, only on Sports Grid.
You know, you don't usually get Alabama basketball booked at less than 160. You're getting that now here. The real question is Aiden Holloway done for the tournament for an Alabama team who, you know, we've seen under Nate Oates, they're more than capable of getting themselves to a Sweet 16 and Elite 8 and maybe even beyond that.
Newswire, only on Sports Grid.
9+ sounds pretty good here, Donnie, at around even money, right?
Ooh.
I got no problem there, trading at 54 cents. And again, all the pressure is on the higher seeds and the favorites, right? Start getting into that 4 or 5 minute mark in the second half, and you're down double digits. Some teams, it does not get better, Donnie. They don't pull themselves up off the court.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on Sports Grid.
NBA Central sent out a tweet yesterday. Hornets announcer Eric Collins says Jalen Duren is one of his favorite players to watch. Quote, I like talking about that body of his cut up like coleslaw, end quote. Interesting.
Yeah. Not quite sure what the reference to coleslaw is. No idea, Donnie. I have no idea.
The Early Line, only on Sports Grid.
Yeah, I don't know how many sports divorces ever end well. None of them really end well. I don't know any divorce that actually ends well. And we're about ready to see one going on up in Milwaukee with the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis. I mean, folks, Giannis wants to continue playing, and the Milwaukee Bucks want to shut him down. When you got a competitor like Giannis, Giannis wants to play, and he wants to make the playoffs, and he wants to build legacy. I get what the Milwaukee Bucks are doing. They want to get an opportunity at getting as many ping pongs as possible to enhance the team's chances of success moving forward. Look, this is not going to end well the same way it didn't end well for Jabbar when he was there in Milwaukee when he was Lou Alcindor. He won his championship when he was in Milwaukee, and that divorce ended poorly, and they ended up shipping him in a 5-team player trade with the Los Angeles Lakers, and then Jabbar would go on, Lou Alcindor would go on and win all those championships with Magic Johnson and the Lakers. Same here with Giannis. Look, this is going to end poorly. You know, they had an opportunity to move Giannis to either Golden State or to Daryl Morey and the Philadelphia 76ers, but they didn't pull the trigger. For whatever reason, they're thinking this thing is going to be able to show Giannis to stay in Milwaukee. I give Giannis a lot of love here. You know, I saw this a little bit with Max Crosby. These players don't want to be shut down. When you're a great player, you're building legacy. You're trying to win as many basketball games as possible. You imagine going to somebody and saying to a guy like Giannis, hey, I want you to shut it down. And what we're going to do, you're healthy though, and we're going to shut it down because we want to enhance the basketball's chances moving forward. Dude, this is never going to end well. Giannis wants to win another championship. Giannis wants to go down as being one of the greatest players in basketball history. This is one thing that I give LeBron James a ton of credit for. And you know what that is? That gives him the opportunity, again, to be mobile and to be able to move when organizations aren't doing a good enough job to put players around you. Look, I think the Milwaukee Bucks had their short window. They put all kinds of great players around Giannis, and now they are failing him. And I think in today's landscape, when you're a professional guy like Giannis and you are a star player, I don't have a problem. I used to have the problem with players not finishing what they started. Look, old school guys will tell you, carpetbagging and going from organization to organization, looking for titles and looking for rings is not the old school way of the Michael Jordans or some of the players of the past like an Hakeem Olajuwon. Well, guess what? The landscape of sports has changed. I like the fact that players get to do this. Hey, if an owner doesn't want to build a championship around me any longer, I'm leaving. Tom Brady didn't get a lot of heat when he ended up leaving New England. New England wasn't retooling the cabinet. They weren't putting players back on the roster. And what did Brady do? Brady got up and made a choice between the Chicago Bears, the Los Angeles Chargers, and, of course, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What did he end up doing? He goes to Tampa, and he wins his 7th NFL championship and his 7th Super Bowl ring. I mean, guys, today's NFL, today's sports, today's NBA, what LeBron James did, he made it fashionable for athletes to be mobile. That is a gigantic thing, that an imprint that he's made on sports. Look at all the athletes. Look at Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay. He goes to the New York Jets. He tries to make the Jets better. That doesn't happen. Then he goes to Pittsburgh. Being mobile in today's sports gives and puts organizations, in my opinion, on notice. Take a look at the Cleveland Cavaliers now and how good the Cavaliers have become on what LeBron James did back in the day. When LeBron said, listen, we're not going to be a contending basketball team. That team that he put in the finals the first time and ended up getting swept, that team had no right being in the NBA Finals. What does he do? The organization wasn't doing enough to put better players around him. He takes his talents to South Beach, and he goes down to South Beach with Eric Spoelstra and with Pat Riley, and they win back-to-back NBA titles. He then goes back to Cleveland, wins a championship against the Golden State Warriors, and then he goes out and he goes to Los Angeles. Look, being mobile, this is where Giannis has to be as well. Hey, Giannis, I know you're loyal to Milwaukee. You want to finish what you started. Those days are gone, my friends. The days of Michael Jordan going to Chicago and finishing what he started. Hell, he even left and went and came back and went to the Washington Wizards. Look, I don't have any problem with athletes today, but this is going to end in a poor divorce. All divorces end poorly. You don't just say, hey, I'll see you later, honey. We're all good. Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks are heading for a departure from each other. And no question about it, I see Giannis in the next couple of years being in a contender. Could it be the New York Knicks? How about Giannis in New York at Madison Square Garden? Seeing that, huh? Giannis there playing with the Knicks. This thing is not going to end well. Cam Stewart. We'll talk a little NCAA hoop with him and NHL next here on Sports.
I wait until I get the tournament bracket. Then you'll see me start to talk about who makes a run, who's right to get picked off. You go back to last year, look at St. John's, right? They were on a roll. They got Arkansas, who was a better version of St. John's.
College basketball today, only on Sports Grid.
You don't usually get Alabama basketball booked at less than 160. You're getting that now here. The real question is Aiden Holloway done for the tournament for an Alabama team who, we've seen under Nate Oates, they're more than capable of getting themselves to a Sweet 16 and Elite 8 and maybe even beyond that.
Newswire, only on Sports Grid.
9+ sounds pretty good here, Donnie, at around even money, right? I got no problem there, trading at 54 cents. And again, all the pressure is on the higher seeds and the favorites, right? Start getting into that 4 or 5 minute mark in the second half, and you're down double digits. Some teams, it does not get better, Donnie. They don't pull themselves up off the court.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on Sports Grid.
NBA Central sent out a tweet yesterday. Hornets announcer Eric Collins says Jalen Duren is one of his favorite players to watch. Quote, I like talking about that body of his cut up like coleslaw, end quote. Interesting.
Yeah. Not quite sure what the reference to coleslaw is. No idea, Donnie. I have no idea.
The Early Line, only on Sports Grid.
You know, maybe one of the underlining tournaments on the PGA Tour and one of the most underappreciated events is Valspar Championships there in Palm Harbor at Innisbrook, the Copperhead course. I've played it numerous times. I've been in that Pro-Am. And boy, I'll tell you, you got Brooks Koepka coming back from Live onto the PGA Tour. And, you know, we were talking, Cam Stewart joins us now here, and we were talking, Cam, that, you know, if this guy gets his game going and he keeps consistency going here, come Augusta time here in a couple weeks, this guy could be one of your players to keep an eye on as they get down to Georgia.
You got it, Dan. Nice to see you on a Sunday, and I'll tell you, watch out for Brooks Koepka. What was the problem on Live? A lot of the time, Dan, I think it's like guys you're playing with. There's good quality players there, but the PGA Tour has a lot of guys, and Brooks Koepka is one of those guys. He's like, you know what? I'm going to work my way back. I'm going to pay my penalties, and I'm going to get things done. I really wish he didn't go to Live, but he understood the consequences. Now, what was his problem coming back? Putting. Dan, that's one of the things. That's why he won those majors. He had a great putter, and he was one of the best lag putters on tour. He came back. He goes, I just can't feel it right now. I don't know what's going on with my putting. But he says, I'm finding something, and I'm watching every stroke of this tournament. Great call by you, Dan. I want a picture, like people have a picture with Arnold Palmer. I want a picture of that giant, big bronze snake and me when I go down to Copperhead. I love that statue. Just me and the snake, just hanging out, having a good time. My buddy's dad's actually a bagpiper for the Valspar. They have like a big thing at the start of the tournament. He's a professional. I'm telling you, yeah, Glenn Healy too, former hockey goaltender. He's a part of that crew. So just some crazy information right there. But Brooks Koepka's 5 under. He's tied for 6 as we're doing this hit right now, Dan, and he looks very dangerous. Augusta's coming. He has a game for a U.S. Open, PGA Championship. Be very careful, PGA Tour, because once this guy finds his putting, he's going to be very dangerous. And I'll tell you, Dan, the crazy thing about golf too, where the hell has Sunjay M been? I've been looking at this guy for the last couple, and all of a sudden the guy's 9 under. I'm like, he can't make a cut. He can't do anything. And bam, golf is one of those crazy sports. Sometimes guys hit the range, they find something, and Sunjay M looks like the old Sunjay M, a guy that used to be a top 5 and top 10 machine.
One more question on golf here. Tiger Woods is now working on the schedule. He's really knee-deep and involved in what the scheduling of the PGA Tour is going to look like in the upcoming years here. In your opinion, how is this going to change, in your opinion, and how the PGA Tour will look with all these events? And will there be shorter? Will the schedule be shorter, less events, or do you think they're going to expand?
It's a great question, Dan. I would like to see less events and better events, but I don't know. That's the whole thing. The PGA Tour will listen to their committee, and the 2 guys with the biggest ears for, like Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy, I think are the 2 guys, McIlroy from a global perspective, and Tiger Woods is one of the best golfers of all time. The problem with the PGA Tour a lot of the time is some of these tournaments and sponsors, they get wedged between majors. Like the Canadian Open is considered like not even a great event. It's a national championship. I know I'm from there, but I'm like, I used to go every single year as a kid, and they played on beautiful courses. And then you have like the Travelers and other things. It's like, the problem is, Dan, you want every tournament to matter, and sponsors want their value from these tournaments. So I don't know. I'll tell you one thing about golfers. They don't want to play less. They want to play more and make more money. You talk about these guys, and that's the whole thing. It's crazy. But I think if Tiger Woods had his way, he'd want more specialized events, smaller fields with the best in the world, and get some of these guys out. But that really sucks for a guy who's like 100 or 125th just trying to grind out and put food on his table for his family. And I'll tell you, one weekend playing great golf can change everything for you. We've seen it with a lot of guys, and it's beautiful. Like, look at Ricky Castillo. He's from the University of Florida, down in your backyard. This guy was grinding, playing on other tours. He was one of the best juniors, and bam, he wins, and now all of a sudden he gets a ticket to all the big events. That's what I love about golf. One weekend, one great 4 days, and you could actually change your life forever. It's fantastic.
I don't know about Rory McIlroy, though. I dig the shrimp that he has on the Champions menu. But
what's with the prunes and bacon?
I know. I saw the Champions dinner. Right? And I saw the elk there. He goes, I've been eating a lot of elk. I'm all right. Yeah, okay. Elk.
Oh, Dan.
Hey,
I used to live in the Arctic. I'll tell you, elk is very lean, and the elk of the Arctic is caribou. It has less fat than chicken. I know you come onto the show for conversation and picks, and I'll give you bad jokes, but I'm dead serious. I ate so much caribou when I used to live in the Arctic by the North Pole there, and it's quite a wild place, I'm telling you. But Rory McIlroy, good point, Dan. This guy, can he putt? Can he get it's amazing to me, a driver of the golf ball and that strong with legs like tree trunks. He can't figure out the putting right now, Dan. It's unbelievable. His short game, once he sharpens it up, he should be in contention every week.
So did you live in an igloo when you were up there, or just
No
keep
igloos,
score
but
here?
I've been to one. I went ice fishing, Dan. I lived in a place called Yellowknife, Northwest Territories for 5 years, and let me tell you, a jug of Sunny D was like $40, but hey, man, fish was like free. That's the thing. They had people in the back of trucks selling fish. I was eating like $50, $80 cuts for nothing. I played on a hockey team. They felt bad for me because I made no money at this local radio station. They're all miners working in the diamond and gold mines, and they gave me hockey bags full of caribou and fish or whatever. Literally, I could sell this stuff on the street here in Toronto for about $5,000. But I digress. Yeah, I lived there for 5 years. No igloos, Dan, but it was minus 45, minus 50. Things are freezing before they even hit the ground. It's nuts.
Absolutely. Speaking of nuts, the NCAA tournament, what's been the most impressive thing to you so far with the NCAA tournament in the first 2 rounds?
So many smaller schools grinding. The High Point story is a nice story. I will say this. I think there's a lot of teams this year, Dan, that could do really, really well. It's funny you mentioned, I put futures on a team, and I know they got to beat Arizona, but I really like the Arkansas Razorbacks. They're 55-1 live right now, and I know they played Hawaii in their first game, and they gave up points, but they almost scored 100. Darius Acuff is one of the best players in the nation that people aren't talking about. I like his over-under today, and I like Arkansas to smoke High Point. High Point was a great story, beating Wisconsin, but I think the Razorbacks are a very dangerous 4 seed, Dan. So that's a team that I really, really love tonight. I think he'll have 25 points, and Arkansas money line is only minus 120. And I'm going to take a shot with Louisville. They've been banged up all year, and I think they can hang with Michigan State plus 4.5. I expect a really tight game, Dan.
What about Florida? How far do you think Florida can go? Do you believe Florida could be a Final Four team?
Yes, I do. I think Florida can be a Final Four team. I told you before about Arizona. They looked absolute like world beaters in their first game, and that's scary because Arkansas is in their bracket. But we'll see. Yes, definitely Florida can be that team. I just think this is the first time there's a lot of teams. Like you could name a lot, but before I'd usually go, 3 or 4 teams can win this thing. I'm thinking like 8 to 10. So Dan, I think that there's a lot of dangerous teams out there. Hockey, we talked about it. The Sabres, Dan, 2 shutouts on the road on the West Coast in California. Who the hell are these guys? The hits just keep on coming. I'm taking them again today against the Los Angeles Kings. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And watch out for Nashville. They're starting to play pretty good hockey. They're a home dog against the Las Vegas Golden Knights. The Predators are playing a lot better. And Vegas, to me, Dan, they don't look right. Like if you take a look at, there's teams like the Florida Panthers and the Vegas Golden Knights are just not who they were. We talked about this before. Wear and tear. And I was watching the Florida-Calgary game last time. Like the Flames are like absolutely outplaying the Florida Panthers. Like what the hell's going on here? The Panthers are out of gas. Watch out for Nashville. I think they find a way. And I'll tell you, I'm not betting against the Buffalo Sabres until I don't see things that I love. Now they're getting goaltending. Lyon stood on his head, back-to-back shutouts with Luukkonen too. Man, this team's hot.
Okay, so real quick here. We've been talking about this Avalanche team, and I've been waiting for them to go away. Man, they look like the best team in the NHL right now, or is that fool's gold?
No, it's not fool's gold. They're the best team in the NHL. But I'll tell you one thing, Dallas, when they play Colorado, it's always close. Dan, take a look at the results between the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche. Overtimes, shootouts, every game going down to the wire. And I give the edge in goal to the Dallas Stars with Ottinger, but Colorado has a little bit deeper of a team. But I think those are the 2 best teams in the Western Conference, and they're very, very scary. So, no, if you were to tell me now, Colorado is the best team. Nathan McKinnon and the guys on his team, they're so solid. Will they get that goaltending in the playoffs? And we've seen it before. If a goaltender stumbles, that's bad news. You need a hot tender. And right now, I think the Dallas Stars have a better tender. They were a hot hockey team, Dan. They won 13 in a row before they lost to Colorado, and that game went to extra time. So those are the 2 best teams, in my opinion. But, God, I'm just loving watching the Buffalo Sabres every night. Is putting a smile on my face. And by the way, Dan, free money. Nothing's free in this world, but betting against the Toronto Maple Leafs usually is. I'll take the Battle of Ontario, Ottawa Senators tonight in a parlay, and minus 1.5 against the Leafs. Ottawa would love to punch these guys in the face tonight. They hate Toronto. I'd like to win this game like 5-3.
Boy, I'll tell you, one of the greatest barns of all time is that Nashville barn.
Oh, I love it.
Thank you, my friend. We will talk A.J. Brown next right here on Sports Grid.
Oh, yeah, that arena's awesome.
You wouldn't have your ex officiate your wedding.
Do you, Jake? Liar? Cheater? gaslighter.
So why have anyone but America's largest injury law firm handle your injury case? With over $30 billion recovered for our clients, there's a reason to go big.
Gaslighter, coitus crier, he's got more red flags than a bullfighter's attire.
Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter.
I don't like to overthink it, Kevin. I really don't. And similar situation, I feel the same way when it comes to betting. I find like that Sunday night, so you're watching the NFL games, and all of us do it. Like, all right, let's look to next week now. You know what I mean? That Sunday, the dust is settled on the game. They just ended, so I'm like, let's look at next week. My first reaction is always the best reaction.
Game time decisions only on Sports Grid.
This is why the regular season, Joe, does mean something, because Detroit is going to get a back-end team in the East to begin.
Yes, and it does. And it's just a very strange situation, unfortunate situation for Cade Cunningham in Detroit. But the good news is, if you keep playing teams like the Washington Wizards, well, you're not going to need Cade Cunningham to win those games like they did last night.
The Early Line, only on Sports Grid.
We are really starting to see that slowdown, and we're anticipating it with March Madness this year. Obviously, you don't have as many states going online. Gone are the days when you're adding 10 states every year, so the numbers will inflate that way. And I mentioned prediction markets taking money as well. One firm, HG Gambling Capital, estimates that they'll add about another $500 million in bets.
Newswire, only on Sports Grid.
You can put your skill and your luck to work on Kalshi. Why? They're offering $1 billion here. If you can pick the perfect bracket, sounds easy, Joe. Just pick the perfect bracket, get $1 billion.
Yeah, I think.
So one of the dominating storylines in the NFL has been what is going to happen with Philadelphia Eagle A.J. Brown. It's been one of the biggest stories ever since the Combines and ever since free agency began a couple weeks ago. Listen, A.J. Brown has had it in Philadelphia. His last 2 seasons, he's underachieved because the offense has gone in a different direction and he wants out. It's not that he hates the quarterback. He hates the head coach and what the head coach's philosophy is by running the football. Take a look at the numbers. Ever since A.J. Brown has had Saquon Barkley in the huddle with him, 2 previous years, he was at 3,000 yards. His last 2 years, he's been in Philly 4 years, he's had 2,000 yards. The offense does not go through A.J. Brown, and he's now looking at legacy. Now, we're very fortunate to have a little bit of an insight with one of our friends that's one of the executives for the New England Patriots. And not hard to figure out if you look at who's in that organization, who I would be affiliated with. Well, we have been told this, that the New England Patriots have offered a 2 and a 3 for A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles want a 1 and a 2. Now, here's the problem. There's 32 million reasons why the Eagles would have a problem with this, and also the New England Patriots would. Remember, you would have to acquire that money, and there's also a June 1 destination, which means this. Post-June 1, the salary cap hit to the Eagles is $14 million. Pre-June 1, it's $48 million. So you've got to look at a trade, I would think, post-June 1, the same kind of scenario that we saw with Michael Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys when they moved him prior to the start of the NFL season. Now here, Howie Roseman, the general manager of the Philadelphia Eagles, all he has to do is flip the switch, and this deal will get done. Adam Schefter, Albert Breer, everyone believes that it's not if he's going to be traded, it's only a matter of time when he'll be traded. Now listen, here's the deal with AJ. Great football player. And what we saw with Jalen Waddle and what Jalen Waddle and the asking price was on what the Denver Broncos did when the Miami Dolphins sent Jalen Waddle to the Denver Broncos. Look, you got first and a third basically in here. And this is pretty much going to be the asking price for A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is a better player than Jalen Waddle. He is one of the most electric players that we have in the NFL. I don't believe his skills are diminished. I believe it's the style of play that has aggravated A.J. Brown. Look, there's no question about it. This kid's one of the greatest players the NFL has. You look at his yak, which is yards after the catch, he's one of the best in the league. The Philadelphia Eagles, during the Nick Sirianni run, he has been the difference. Is he the greatest wide receiver in Philadelphia Eagle history? And that includes Terrell Owens? Absolutely. His 4 years have produced 2 NFC championships and a Super Bowl. Now it's about legacy. Now it's about making the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Now it's about getting his numbers. A.J. Brown wants to be considered one of the top receivers in the game again. I don't believe he has diminished skills. I believe that offense has held him back. Now, again, you look at the 50 and 18, the last 4 years, 50 and 18, the Philadelphia Eagles have been, and they've won 2 NFC titles and a Super Bowl during the Sirianni era over the last 4 years. A.J. Brown doesn't care about winning any longer. A.J. Brown cares about legacy. He's got his ring. He's got his 2 NFC title rings. Now he wants his shot at going to Canton. Every single player that plays in the National Football League wants his cake and eat it. You want to get paid. You want to win. And you want to go to Canton. Here's a player that sees those things. It is going to be a tough putt if he stays in Philadelphia. And by the way, he doesn't want to stay in Philadelphia. He wants to go someplace that he's always coveted. That is New England. He's been a New England Patriot fan his entire life growing up, and this is where he wants to finish his career, is in New England. And by the way, the head football coach is Mike Vrabel. Where did A.J. Brown start his career? He started it in Tennessee with Mike Vrabel. Do you think there's any coincidence that A.J. Brown, his last 2 teams that he's played on, you had Derrick Henry in Tennessee, and now you have Saquon Barkley in Philadelphia. It's not that he doesn't want to be in a run-dominant offense. He just wants the offense to go through him in the passing game. Look, there's no doubt about it right now. New England needs offensive weapons. They need to have somebody for Drake May. We just saw the Super Bowl. They didn't belong on that field with the Seattle Seahawks because they really had no offensive firepower. If you're going to continue to improve and to expand the game of Drake May, you need to put offensive firepower guys in there. By the way, who is the best offensive coordinator in pro football? It's Josh McDaniels. Look what he did for Tom Brady. Think about that. Josh McDaniels, Drake May, and A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown gets to New England. The New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills will once again fight it out for the AFC East. His days in Philly are over. He does not want to be with that quarterback. He does not want to be in that coach's system. The days are numbered. And the confrontation that they had on the sidelines in the San Francisco game and the constant bickering back and forth about the offense, his agent going on different podcasts and telling people he wants to get a real quarterback. I've said this before about Jalen Hurts. He's limited at best when it comes to his skill set. The guy has figured out how to win. There is no doubt about it. One of the best winners in the National Football League. But this deal is on the table right now. Okay? This deal right now is on the table, and they basically have a handshake agreement between the Philadelphia Eagles and the New England Patriots. It's Patriots and Eagles, and I don't really believe it's anybody else. There was a conversation that it could have been Rams. I don't see the Eagles sending A.J. Brown to the Los Angeles Rams to make them even better on the way out the door for Matthew Stafford. That's not going to happen. It's A.J. and the Patriots, and Howie Roseman gets his 1 and 2. They're playing a game of chicken right now as we get closer to the NFL draft, and then also as we get closer to June 1. Make no mistake about it. He's out the door in Philly. There is another organization that's in shambles. I'll tell you who that is next, right here on Sports Grid. So this past week, we saw incompetence at its height, and that's the Miami Dolphins. I mean, $175 million in dead cap money. And I'm actually hearing some analysts say they really like what the Miami Dolphins are doing, and Stephen Ross, the owner of the team, by getting rid of everybody and starting over. Well, let's take a little history lesson on what's happened over the last 6 years in Miami with Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins. It's cost you a general manager in Chris Greer. It's cost you 2 head football coaches. And now it's cost you almost $100 million in one player and moving off of Tua Tagovailoa. And you've got $175 million in dead cap money. You know, as I said, some analysts are like, hey, I'm actually all in that the Dolphins are trying to start over and they're just cleaning house. Well, here, help me out here. A couple years back, when the Miami Dolphins ended up getting 2 first-round picks from the San Francisco 49ers, because the 49ers wanted to draft Trey Lance, right? What did they do with those picks? To sit here and think that an incompetent owner like Stephen Ross is going to empower his people to make selections to be able to make his football team better? What's the benchmark where you land on that, where they have done anything right since he's been the owner of the team? They haven't been a playoff winning team in 15 years. They haven't done anything right. You could give that organization 5 first-round picks, and you think the Miami Dolphins are going to know what to do with those 5 picks? Based on what? Show me where they've had success doing this. Show me where they have had success in any place when it comes to running that team. Remember, this is the same organization that also passed on Justin Herbert. Hey, Brian Flores, who's now the defensive coordinator of the Minnesota Vikings, told you flat out that Stephen Ross is an absolutely train wreck of an owner. Remember, they were asking Brian Flores to lose. Stephen Ross is in the conversation with Jimmy Haslam in Cleveland and obviously Woody Johnson with the New York Jets. Look, the Miami Dolphins are poorly run. They're poorly owned. And again, they're poorly staffed. this football team has no shot, as long as this man owns this team, of ever being a contender again. You know, a lot of people, I was talking to my daughter a couple days ago, and I told her, I said, do you know that the Miami Dolphins at one time were the gold standard in the NFL? They went to 3 straight Super Bowls. They won 2 of those, and one of them was undefeated. It's one of the greatest runs in NFL history. One of those teams was actually undefeated. But that was with a football man by the name of Joe Robbie. They have not been a contending football team since the Robbies owned the team. And to sit there and think that the ownership is going to put the team in the right direction, once again, based on what? What success has this man had? Now, look, when you own an NFL team, you are a cash register. Every single calendar turn of the year, every team generates nearly $600 million in revenue. So if this guy is 17-0 or 0-17, this guy doesn't give a damn if his team is winning or not. They want to go with the notion that, hey, I'm putting a valuable product on the field. Have you seen the stadium at Hard Rock when Dolphins play home games? Nobody's there. You got a better opportunity at people showing up at a fishing tournament in Hialeah or going to the flea market in Hialeah than going to a Miami Dolphin game. This used to be one of the gold standard teams in all of pro football. Now you look at them, they're in the same conversation with the Jags, a team that never produces. And Stephen Ross is one of the worst owners, not just in the NFL, but in all of professional sports. Dude, you tank to lose, you keep losing, and for you to sit there and say, well, we're starting over again. Starting over again to do what? Continue your losing ways? There is nothing in the future for Miami Dolphin football as long as that guy is in South Florida. It's been a train wreck. Man, Joe Robbie must be looking down from the football skies and saying, what the hell has happened to my Miami Dolphin football team? Because at one time, as I said, you're talking gold standard of the National Football League. That guy's an ass clown that runs the Miami Dolphins. What a poor owner. It's between Woody Johnson of the Jets and Stephen Ross. Gotta love Jet fans, though. And you gotta love Fireman Ed. Guy hits his head with a hammer, and you got this guy that needs to be hit with a hammer. We'll see you Sunday. We'll catch you on the flip side.